I think we are already about ready to kick off our next set because we've got some more familiar faces from the StarCraft universe. We've got Kiwian versus NightPhoenix. I believe we've already kicked off the map draft. And surprise, surprise, what a way to start this off. The flex of Kiwian. He opens this best of 5 with Jagged Maw.
That is interesting. I mean, it's 75%, I think, win rate as
Yeah.
Inferno players right now, certainly. Although we have seen
If you don't count today's active stats, I guess it's helped
Okay,
tilt a little bit, but
do we still have killer pitch and KP? Do we have a win rate on what it is now?
So Vortex took a dump on the other maps for us. Like, actually, he ruined the perfect balance. Before that series between Vortex and Clem, on the day, we were 50-50 split on all 3 maps. But of course, he hasn't impacted Jagged Maw as that wasn't picked in the Vortex Clem series. So this will decide who's the king of Jagged Maw, at least for our third set of the day. Will it be the Vanguards or will it be the Infernals?
I appreciate. Look, I like that. That is a nice dulcet tone in our ear. I've got Otacon on comms for all the hot info. We appreciate that. And how about that? Very close across the maps. People are adjusting. People are leveraging their strategies and their economies and their chances of winning on doing things to try and make a splash. And what better opportunity than in the earlier stages of a game? Really, the truth is nobody has it completely figured out. There are so many things that we're still seeing people do, and on this map, this has been a huge catalyst for progress because absolutely nobody likes getting hit with that catapult rush, Beo.
Yeah, although we have seen some players not opt for it. We've seen some players get greedy. But I'm really curious to see what Kiwian has in mind because again, he picked this map. Now, there may be some serious planning here. It's like, look, I'm going to take Jagged Maw game 1, which means it cannot be played game 2, which also means it cannot be played game 4. So I am really confident, even if I lose Jagged Maw, that I'm going to win like the next 3 games. And, you know, maybe that's the serious planning. I don't know, because for right now, he's going for that. Oh, I was looking at this like, oh, okay, he's going to mine through. He's going to go for the catapult push. But he is Kiwian is Dragon. Nate, you know what? I know you were on Kiwian's team for the pre-alpha tournament. I know you're familiar with the turret rush, but this one, it's a little bit different from what we got 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, the old turret was horrible. I love the turret redesign, Frost Giant. It is so much better than what we had in the early pre-alpha. I'm opening with that statement. But this is, I mean, what? Okay, conceptually, let's just start. You have the ramp cut off with the buzzsaw turret, which is generally good against anything that you could have early enough to try to get out. So it's a contain build. But I don't think that a soft contain really exists in this context. It's pretty committed. It's not cheap. He's got 2 bombs across the map. The Lancer's not cheap. He's got 2 of them across the map. And I would assuredly expect a little bit more. But at some point, he probably tries to go really greedy behind this, you would imagine, to counter the huge investment that will be necessary to break out. I actually, you know what? Forget that. Apparently, it's a play to get the siege camp, too. He's got a repair turret next to the buzzsaw. Okay, well... Kiwian is I don't know. This he's tapped into some dark places in my mind when I play this game, and I love what I'm seeing. So I'm just gonna need to step aside here for a second. Beo, what are your thoughts?
You know, Kiwian was messing around with ideas like this on the previous iteration on the Devastator build. He actually played a game against Mono where he turret rushed the double Therium on the bottom side. That was pretty cool. But yeah, this is a whole another story. It's going to keep NightPhoenix on one base. It means he actually loses access to at least one catapult camp. And quite honestly, I feel like he's going to turret rush the other catapult camp too. I don't know this. This is not confirmed, Nate, just so we're clear. But he tried to do that earlier on. So this is like next level, the next version of that turret rush he tried in the round of 16 matchup. That didn't quite work. But this time, it's one base. He's not going to get hit by a flank because, hey, NightPhoenix cannot be on the map because there's a buzzsaw in his natural. And yeah, there is a Shroud Stone on the high ground, but the gods can't really engage this easily.
Good tank.
But that is a really good tank. Kiwian needs to retarget.
Yeah, trying to put the Brood out so it can soak all the hits. You don't want the bounce damage to hit the Gaunts. The thing is that buzzsaw turret does crazy damage to the Gaunts. And here's an interesting answer to it. He's actually opted straight for the Doombringer. So while he is getting sieged up, and in a way this turret rush is definitely going to happen whether he wants to or not, Kiwian is making a play for the other siege camp. while the Doombringer is headed to his main. Is there anything at all there to deal with this? Is that a turret being built by one Bob?
He's got a Lancer as well.
Okay. Well, that actually could be enough to buy him time for the siege play to play out, but he doesn't really have an answer for it itself. And I think the Lancers here should have no problem keeping the catapult alive. Does he try to move the turret up the ramp next? Is that where we? You can repair. You can repair the catapult too. I just never thought to try that. There you go.
Look at what he's done as well. He's put a scout in one of these turrets, and what that means is he's gonna try to. Okay, the Gaunts are just not quite enough in range, but he's got so much high ground vision. He knows everything that's happening. This turret or this catapult's gonna stay alive. No, it's not. Never mind. It will fall down. And on the other side, there is no mining.
Oh, he's attacking his own command post. Look, the Buzzsaw is attacking the command post, and it was bouncing to the Gaunts. What am I watching?
That's a tech that's been figured out for maybe like last week or so. Unfortunately, the Gaunts were just out of range enough that it didn't really do what you're looking for. A Gaunts actually can do the same thing, but their splash radius was nerfed a decent amount, so they're not able to do as much. Kiwian's not mining, by the way, so yeah, this is a crazy setup from both sides.
This game is just absolutely off the chain, and he's got out a hedgehog, so he's saying I'm going to play the micro game, but I feel like the early Gaunt's one of the few things that kind of handles that. So yes, the siege is held. He's bringing the rest of his units back now, and his main base is potentially forfeit with not really much to do about it. If the Bobs come over to repair, then the bounce hits them, and if they don't, then the base dies. So he has to commit everything that he could possibly get into holding this. It is worth pointing out again that the south siege camp was in play earlier. He's still getting it, so don't worry, guys. Kiwian's got a counterattack ready for whenever we get past this very scary phase of the game.
He sold the barracks to get enough money to get, I guess, a second hedgehog.
He salvaged the barrack? Okay.
Yeah, well, he sold the barracks. Now, I'm really surprised to just see him sit under that and not transform the hedgehog. Because, again, hedgehogs their anti-air is actually pretty scary. Could have dislodged this Doombringer just a little bit.
It has to go the long way, too. Yeah, that's the transformation time on the hedgehog. That's the only thing about it that it gets really frustrating defensively. Defensively, using the hedgehog feels like a bit of a pain in the butt. But I think we can probably boil this one down to something other than hedgehogs. Probably has a little more to do with the turret rush outside of his opponent's base, and then having nothing in his main for the Doombringer counterattack. I'm just gonna throw this out there. That may have been a factor, Beo.
Yeah, maybe just a tiny bit. You try to hit your opponent where it hurts, and then hey, look, Nate. Some of these Bobs are level 2. They have an additional like 100 HP. Clearly, that's gonna be enough to not keep Kiwianin in this game.
The level 2 Bobs self-repairing each other as the game. I mean, is there a more beautiful end to a match than that? They're just trying to stay on as long as possible. That's yeah, that was a game. That was a game on Jagged Maw. Well, let's put one. I think that means we put a crisp 5 into the Jagged Maw jar for the Infernal. So,
Nate, I would have said before this game that I think the best series we've seen this weekend thus far was Skilless Laser from yesterday. It was fantastic. But then we had this just certified. Actually, you know what? Give me a second. You talk. I got something for this game. I'll be right back.
Okay. Beo's on top of it. No, just a crazy game. And just big shout out to NightPhoenix too. You have to imagine that there are only so many different people that are doing strategies like that at this level, that for NightPhoenix to be able to hold on to that and deal with that, like it's just a stressful situation too, being in that spot where your opponent has the turrets outside, you can't expand. And I believe you have a very serious and heavy statement to make now for us, Beo.
Yeah, this was a clown fiesta, so we break out the clown nose. That's how that works.
As is tradition.
Look, Nate, I don't make the rules. That's not, I don't make the rules, but in this situation, I will take it because that was such a fun game. I don't think we're going to see another one like it. Obviously, NightPhoenix is up 1-0 in this series. But I'm curious now, Kiwian, he got Jagged Maw out of the way, and now he's going to play the game that we expect him to play. Or, we're going to play the map that we expect him to play, because Broken Crown is our second map, and that certainly means we shouldn't see a repair turret, a buzzsaw turret, a scout turret, another couple buzzsaw turrets.
The repair turret with it, though, is just, oh, man. That's just, That's like exactly that's exactly the kind of thing that you're like when you hear about the idea that the turrets are modular, boom, first thought. But here we are, Broken Crown moving into game number 2, and yeah, modular turrets are great. It feels really cool when you get like a couple of those repair turrets and you've got Vulcans fighting a huge army and they just don't die and all that. But using it for the offensive turret rush, well, thankfully that strategy is not one of those ones that's a lot easier to do than defend.
That it is, and you know, Nate, is the really cool thing about this as well as we look at different players playing this. It can be very easy for metas to convert, right? Every single, you know, like you look at Clem and StarCraft, for example, like most game, 8 out of 10 games, it's going to be 1-1-1, 3 command center, Hellion Banshee type thing against a Zerg player, for example, or, you know, they become very standard builds that everyone plays. And we are early enough into Stormgate, and there's enough map variability, and the things have not been figured out enough. Is he goes just in range of the overcharge to make sure he can get his natural down ASAP. But there's not just enough variability in the creep camps and the map design and everything else that every single player that we've seen play in this tournament thus far has played the game, has approached the game very differently. They've all got their own builds, they've all got their own approaches. The Laser plays very defensively as an Inferno player. Kiwianin playing very aggressively as a Vanguard player. It's so cool to see that we have these 8 players and they're taking different approaches to how the game gets played.
I couldn't agree more. Just even talking about the number of bobs that get sent down when players take that early command post. It's not unpopular to go fast command post. We see it very regularly, especially versus Infernal. But is it 2 bobs? Is it 4? Is it 6? Do you have the overcharge immediately? You can't do it on the building. You know, you can't build it while you can't use overcharge on a constructing command post anymore. So you do have to use it while you're leaving, and that's another one of those things to consider. But seeing the different way that people approach it is really fun, because even though, you know, I played a lot of StarCraft in my days, I also really love Age of Empires, and the idea, the concept of being able to use lots of different workers to put something together quickly is not just about, oh, well, if you need something, you can do it fast. But stylistically, certain people will latch on to that in ways where it's like, I'm going to make my important stuff with 2 or 4, or what is unimportant enough that I can make it with just 1 worker, right? That I can keep as many getting resources as possible. Those kinds of decision-making trees are really fun, I think. Fundamental building blocks of RTS, really.
So Nate, you're telling me that if I'm really mad at how a game's going, I can just build everything with 1 bob just to showcase my displeasure, to tell it how little.
Yeah. To make yourself angry. Be like, you know what? I don't want my barracks as fast as possible. I just want this window where I could die to be as wide as imaginable. So I'm only going to use 1. But you won't find a lot of people that use 1 bob to make their barracks, and that's you know, it says a lot. It says a lot about how people feel. It's like a way to check the temperature almost.
Yeah, no, certainly, you know, it shows, you know, it's a mental thing, right? How unimportant something is to you or not. But for now, we're going to have NightPhoenix. I think we saw him open Vault Conclave, but certainly it's only Gaunt's on the map right now. So he takes the Speed Camp for a couple of Fiends, takes the Vision Camp to make it a little bit harder. No, this was double Conclave. That makes more sense. And he's going to sweep the map. He's going to take every creep camp available, and Kiwian's gonna have to hunker down for the moment. But the other way to look at this is you're buying a lot of stuff early on. You're buying a lot of units early on, and that does slow down, not a ton your third base, but it does mean that Kiwian can invest into tech just a little bit more. As long as he plays defensively, he's not going to be quite as worried about a bunch of Fiends running in part because, well, NightPhoenix has just lost a lot of these Fiends that he's trying to build up.
Yeah, and I also wanted to point out too, love the way that he walled off the main there. I think I've seen this. It's happened to me once or twice. You probably do this. You Gosu God, you Beo. But the meat farm wall off with the Fellhogs kind of catching or trapping units in there is something I've seen a little bit more of. Love that. The door closing as you go through it being one of the little bits of tech that's getting kind of figured out. Never really thought of the meat farm as being possibly used in like a door type way, but those little things that you just start to notice as the games move on have just been really cool. And like you said, everyone takes their own approach to it, so it's just been fun to watch.
Nate, you give me a lot of credit here because that's actually news to me.
That is pretty cool, though. I've seen it in the trees, in the tree line opener on specifically this map when you have it be that small choke point and the meat farm is right on the outside of it. I've had units get stuck just trying to go through. As soon as you trigger the AI, there's like just enough distance for them to gap you, but you can't control the Fellhogs manually. So I guess it's still, there's always a little bit of a gamble there.
That's still pretty cool though. I'll give you credit for that one. As I mean, this is a ton of Lancers on this third base, and Gaunts are good, but against speed Lancers like this, not incredible. The splits are actually really nice though, and one of the things when we talk about these Lancers is, look, they do a lot of damage when they get fully procced. They move very fast. We see them run away now. But the part of the value is that they are, well, they do splash damage. They do it in a little bit of a line ahead of them. They do a really nice job there. So you split your Gaunts out like that. Even if Gaunts don't do a ton of damage to Lancers, when Lancers can't stack their damage, it doesn't really, we saw what happened. The Lancers didn't really get a ton of kills. Now the drop's on the other side, but there's double EXO right now. Certainly they can start to do some damage. They try to target this Doombringer down. The splash on the command post means they have to stay away. But it looks like for the moment here, yeah, Kiwianin is going to be able to defend this. Looks to maybe get a couple more shots. The infestation is going to try, but it's not going to get any of these army units. And, well, at the end of the day, no Bobs will die from this. That was almost super cool, Nate. Two of these Exos, they would have died from that infestation. So to keep them alive, to dodge that out of the way is so important.
I was pretty impressed he was able to get them out, and we're seeing this usage. We talked about this earlier, but on Broken Ground, that natural Luminite is exposed to the low ground. You see a lot of gameplay around the harass on the low ground versus the range. If you have too many of the Lancers, not enough Exos. Good control from the Exos so far, though, actually managing to get a couple of picks, keeping them all alive so far. One of them has the veterancy and is at very, very low health, but again, we're talking about a pretty significant damage increase over the rest of the Exos nearby. Just something to keep in mind. Keep your eyes on those powered up boys, as they've got a lot more impact on the engagements. And there's the recall, I think, getting the Doombringer back home to continue to harass down the line. Yeah, there it is over at the third shroud.
Yeah, I will say, one of the reasons that this Doombringer drop is so powerful is that when you A move, your Gaunts or your Exos, they actually won't target the Doombringer at all. You have to manually click every single time. Which, you know, if you are Kiwianin, maybe it's not the end of the world, but for most players that can be a little annoying. You just A move on his top and expect your units to attack. But for now, we're gonna see Shroud Snows go down. There is one Magmadon here, but I mean, Nate, there are so many Lancers, and he's not even gonna take the damage. He's gonna kite back away, rejoin once the Magmadon is finished walking, and now it's just kind of stuck there. It's not doing splash damage anymore. Lancers on the back lines, they're all sectioned off, and they're going to kill every single one of these Gaunts. Magmadon gets kited out as well, and this is a third base broken from NightPhoenix. He's not going to be able to keep it alive. Kiwi hits the nice timing. The Sharp Stone's going to get manifested, but with nothing to defend it, it falls down so very quickly. And Kiwianin is quite honestly just running away with the game at this point.
Yeah, the Lancers got stacked up very quickly, like you were pointing out. Ran straight into the center of the Gaunts. The kinetic redirect, you've got all those bouncing attacks crossing all of them over, so they stack up crazy fast, and then they just run you down. Not bad at all. And we see here Kiwianin turning the seesaw perhaps in the other direction a little bit. Finally, getting some Vanguard love going here in game number 2 as he tries to even things up.
Yeah, you know, Nate, I've been, keeping an eye on chat occasionally, and a bunch of people in Twitch chat are convinced that it is absolutely impossible for Vanguard to win a game of Stormgate.
I have only been watching since the beginning of that Vortex series, so I have literally never seen Vanguard win, okay? That's all right. And if I haven't seen it, then that means it hasn't happened, because I'm the main character, Beo, all right? That's what you need to remember.
Yeah. This is true, Nate. Thank you for gracing me with your presence. I am so happy that I have wait, no. Uppatry is the main character. What are you talking about here?
That's
sorry.
True. That's
Jason.
True.
Jason's the main character. What am I saying? Jason's the main character. I thought your name was Nate.
Whoever gets the last line of dialogue before the song Roundabout starts to play, they get to be the main character. We'll just leave it there, all right? We'll just leave it there.
There we go.
Doombringer harass on the Ethereum, the natural. And yeah, Kiwianin, I mean, he had a really good start like we talked about. So it's all about holding this harass and getting another push. But we're not, are we convinced NightPhoenix has the capability to defend a follow-up here? Because this is just a lot.
Now, this is NightPhoenix saying, look, I got 8 Gaunts in a drop, and if I can go and snipe one of your bases because you're absolutely not paying attention, maybe I can come back into this game. But unfortunately, Kiwianin is a very good Stormgate player. He's got tons of games against Parting's, multiples of Parting's accounts. I mean, he's sitting there. He's one of these ladder players, or he's one of these ladder qualifier players, one of the best Stormgate players across the pre-alpha and the alpha and all the alphas and the betas.
He's got a pretty
he's not
crazy
gonna fall
game
victim.
volume, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's been playing a ton. As soon as the turret rush started, people were posting in chat like, have you guys seen Kiwian's turret rush series? Apparently it's not just a one-off thing. He's got just a crazy variety of builds he plays, so that's what you like to see out of people anyway. Bring that variety, that creativity.
I mean, hey, he's got a ton of practice turret rushing people to win tournaments. You were on again. You remember that pre-alpha tournament, so
yeah. All I did was just be there for Mana to punch so that he was tired out for the series against Scarlet. But I will take that. I will take that credit. I appreciate that. Those turret rushes. The turret rushes. I'm the guy that has to get knocked down to inspire everybody else. We don't have a vengeance mechanic in this game yet, though. But hopefully one day. And there it is. NightPhoenix tapping out as he gets pushed up on that base. The Hellborn's not going to be able to turn the tide. We know that they can be good against the Exos, but all the meat and potatoes were off the table pretty early there. That big push on the third with the kinetic redirect. You called it perfectly, Beo, but he just absolutely chopped him up. The Doombringer harass when he only had the 2 Exos and it was kind of bouncing off the command post. Like you called out that specific situation, and I felt like the whole game just turned as soon as he held that, and we didn't have the big fiend explosion out of the bobs. Everything just went off the rails.
Yeah, you talked about how, well, Lancers just don't die. To put this in context, Lancers have an ability. They have a passive at the very start. That means that every single bit of damage they take before armor is removed by 3. So it's not great against, say, a 50 damage nuke, but it is really good against low damage things. Gaunts do 6 damage before armor. So they're doing 3 damage to, what is it, like a 200 HP, 250 HP unit. That is then also, getting some armor there and being affected by that one as well. They just don't die. And you talk about a vengeance mechanic. Taking no damage and speeding up and moving faster and attacking faster, that kind of feels like a vengeance a vengeance mechanic to me.
When I heard you say it like that in your very professional tone, I realized that in a way it kind of is. And it's interesting too, because it's not as much about an active ability, but in a way it functions the way that you would expect an active ability to function. So it's like that funny dynamic that's like, your Exos, do they stim? No, unless they shoot something. And it's like, your Lancers, do they stim? No, unless they get shot by something. And it's cool because the only way to really take advantage of it is to take the prolonged fight. So people are talking about that time to kill and some of the ways that these fights can take a while. Your management of the Lancers, especially, as you pointed out, just the fact that they have flat damage reduction like in a Moo passive, that's just crazy. So they can really absorb a ton of pain from those light units early on.
All right, Nate, it's Jag and Ma again. We're seeing the turret
Here
rush
we are.
again.
Four bobs go on a stroll, and I think we know where they're going. I don't believe that there are any questions to ask here. However, there's a meat farm on the low ground. Does this change anything?
It does mean that you have to turret a little bit further away from the ramp. I think that is very well. Actually, you know what? I might be able to get this up before the first Fellhog spawns. Certainly before the second one does. So with a Lancer here, all this means is that actually NightPhoenix is going to lose a little bit more. Actually, you know what? This is a problem for NightPhoenix as we talk about this. Assuming the Buzzsaw gets up, suddenly the Buzzsaw has something to bounce against and has effectively further range so long as this Lancer stays alive. But that is a fantastic surround there by all the imps on top of this Lancer. So there's a repair turret. Yeah, but this first Lancer is dead. Second one's going to show up now. And, well, now these imps are going to get pulled down the ramp. We're going to see Gaunts go down very quickly. Yeah, getting that first Lancer is fantastic, Nate. Getting the second one, though, it's not really in the cards. And now NightPhoenix, the door's been shut. He's locked back in.
I love that he just did it again. He's like, look, I know that this match started and we played this crazy, ridiculous game. Everybody's like, what the hell's going on? No. It's Jagged Ma 2, Kiwian turret boogaloo is what's happening here. He got the little note dropped out from our buddy Pigeon from the sky, and he's like, oh man, I gotta get the win rate on this back up for Vanguard. So here we have it. I guess this is a little bit better variation for him. We're gonna find out when the siege camp gets across the map.
Yeah, when the siege camp shows up, and also he has to be aware of the Greater Shrine timing. He has to be aware of this Doombringer timing, because that, like, he was gonna win the game, I think, if he actually went and just defended well enough. if he had his turret up maybe just a little bit faster, but he didn't, and that did slow him down. And we are seeing NightPhoenix. He looks like he's going to try to go for more of a break this time. There's a Vault on the way, so getting a Brute to tank is going to be really solid. That's how we tried to break out last time, but we're going to have a repair turret once again. Second Lancers here as well. But the thing, like, there was a attempted rush there on the catapult, right? Yes, there is. Okay, so there is a little red dot there. And the question now is whether NightPhoenix can break this. He's tried game 1, he wasn't able to do so, had to go for the Doombringer. That is a lot of gaunts, Nate, and he's gonna have 3 brutes. No, I'm sorry, he's just gonna have the one. I thought Animus was spent on that, but he's gonna have that brute to tank, and he's gonna have a ton of gaunts here. Can he break down the ramp?
The biggest thing that I want to address from this situation compared to last time is that he had the 1 buzzsaw. This time it's 2 that are down there that he's left set up, but he had the the turret kind of get tanked by the brute on the way down, and the gaunts were mostly able to hit it and help shut that down. So we didn't really have that same level of play happen here. But the other thing pointed out, and an excellent addressment by Genius 500 IQ in chat guy as well, the turret is in range to repair his command post if he needs it to. So if all he's going to do is just kind of chill here and stall it out while he tries to get the siege camp going or something like that, then it's probably going to be a little bit easier for him to sustain that defense. But having those turret posts tucked in next to the command post does a huge deal of good for defending it, and it's already quite a bit better than last time.
That it is, and notice as well, he has the Lancer that he can bounce behind it and make these Buzzsaw turrets, but also he's not keeping the units he's not keeping the Lancer in the Buzzsaw, because while the Buzzsaw is great, Nate, it's absolutely fantastic, its range is not all that high. So yeah, the basic sentry post is actually able to outrange things. So notice what he's doing. He's just sitting here. It's like, okay, this is fine. You're going to stay on the edge. You're denying my mining. That's unfortunate. I'm going to get some money from the siege camp. He's probably going to sell that turret as well. And he really can't, the gaunts can't get too close because the basic sentry post is right there. It does damage. And if you split off 3 gaunts like this, the Lancers are going to be able to get right on top and punish one side or the other. And by the way,
oh, there's the sensor
on the
tower
other side.
turret. The sensor tower turret you mentioned too. So if you put the scout into a turret, it becomes basically a sensor tower that gives you tremendous vision, and it also has an active ability that extends pretty heavily that cone of vision. Now here's the problem, right? He's trying to repair, he's trying to defend the catapult, but in the time that happens, the workers, you can't really overcharge across the map. So both of the turrets are going to end up getting knocked down because he sent the Lancers home, doesn't have anything left to really keep that contain going, and he didn't expand before the contain was broken, which now begs the question, Beo, where do we go from here?
I would say uncharted territory. Kiwianin or top is the Ferdinand Magellan of Jag and Ma. He is trying to circumnavigate the globe, and he's kind of run into a con. His approach is not quite there anymore, and I'm getting just a little bit worried because remember, this is a top that is on 1 base. This is a top that I think he's got a barracks, but it's only 1. Yeah, he hasn't sold it this time. He's not transitioning into something else. So he's got like 5 Lancers against a ton of gaunts, a Doombringer that can even do some interesting micro.
Look at that. This is...
Yeah.
I mean, how... I don't even know. How would I even try to pretend like this is a straight up fight anymore? He's in a tough spot. This is a lot. What is this? What would you guess? Ballpark like 75 army supply versus maybe 10, 15, 12? It's a lot. He's got a lot coming over here.
Yeah,
Effigy in the back.
This is the problem, and certainly with the catapult as well, your turrets don't do all that well. Like he's shooting his own base to try to make something happen, but
that'll do. That'll do. So NightPhoenix picks up his 2nd win in this series, and we have ourselves a 2-1. It's so interesting to think about. Doesn't go for the salvage on the turrets. It's worth pointing out in case anybody tuning in is new, for Vanguard, except for the command post, you can salvage anything. Any of your buildings, you can salvage any of them. You can salvage them all on accident if you're still learning how to play the game. I've definitely never done that. But more importantly, it's only like 10 seconds, and you get all of the money back. And just to be triple clear, all of the money back.
Hey Nate, did you know that this may be true now that you cannot salvage your command post, but there was a version of the game when you could salvage your command post, and I beat at least one person. Well, obviously not on ladder because ranked wasn't in the moment, but I definitely beat Chicken Man once by saying, "Hey, did you know that you can salvage your command center? Like you can proxy it?" or whatever it was. Like, hey, try to salvage your command center. He does, and immediately
Hey, I heard
lost the
that
game.
I heard you could salvage everything except a command center. Is that true?
It is true now.
Victory just pops up. You're like,
It is
"Oh, well,
true now, but at one
there you
point,
go."
it was
Yeah. You and
my
Fear Dragon
favorite.
turret rushing people, huh? Making people salvage their main bases, building turrets outside there. The original turret in this game took like 15 seconds to build and killed everything. I'd never been so salty. Fear Dragon has become one of my mortal enemies now. I love the new turret. I love the sentry post. It is so interesting with all the things you can do with it.
It is probably the coolest design. Like, again, I love the Weaver, and I'm an Infernal player, so I'm gonna, a little biased here. But the fact that you have one building that turns into 5 buildings based on what you want is really fantastic. And also, there are a couple of units that were in the beta, bio units, I guess, in the beta that were, at one point they've been taken out. Who knows? They might come back later, or different versions of the test. And the question then is, as we maybe get more units that are army units, right? They're not mechs or flyers or things. Do we get more sentry post options? Do we get like later game sentry post
like the
upgrades to make
modular
things happen?
concept. The modular concept is really interesting because it's not just the sentry post either. It's also the habitat, since it technically is 3 buildings. Like it serves a purpose as a wall or just supply on its own, but the fact that you can turn it into an extra defensive structure or production boosting structure or static defense boosting structure. If you put you could put a solar habitat on a turret and it'll shoot faster. It's got so much different utility to it. So I think, at least for me, like for Vanguard, it's one of the big draws of the appeal is that it's not just that there are units with different modes or different utility, but buildings that have it. So strategy wise, you can just really own in on a specific type of play style that you want to do. And I think that's, at least for me, the most fun part about Vanguard.
Oh, it's super cool. The adaptability that Vanguard has right now. And Nate, I think you were talking about this. Maybe it was Demo Pig earlier, and I forget. But I think one of the reasons that for the longest time, and the Vanguard win rate's kind of been climbing up on the ladder over the last since the test really started. But one of the reasons I think it was so low so early. Yeah, there were some things that were maybe a little bit overtuned and needed to get fixed. But one of the reasons was you have so many levers as a Vanguard player to go and do what you want to do. You have how many workers do you go into? How many workers do you build a structure? When do you overcharge? How do you overcharge? Do you build solar habitats? Do you do all these different things that really the macro game that a Vanguard player can play is so complex that it's obviously going to take significantly longer to figure out how exactly you want to play. So I think that is actually one of the reasons why the win rate at the start was so low, because it just takes longer to optimize.
You have more abilities to use. You have more, like the Gaunt. The Gaunt, you're not necessarily doing as much active ability micro with that. The Brute, it's kind of like a little more binary when you want to split or not split, or if you're just in big fights, you're not necessarily focusing on that level anymore. The type of decision making feels a little bit different, but also more straightforward. Like my personal take on this is that it's kind of obvious some of the later tech is a little more fleshed out right now for Vanguard, so some of that strength has to kind of be shifted into the general units for Infernal to be viable at this stage, but everybody kind of has their own takes on that sort of thing. But I feel like the balance truly is found in Vanguard players figuring out how to use the slightly more complex units, and then eventually it'll turn into, okay, how do Infernal players hit timings or get into positions where they can punish Vanguard players that are trying to do these very technical strategies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also again, there's a little bit more room for Vanguard players to play in the early game now, but Nate, because again, the camps have been nerfed and some other things, but Nate, you talk about the late game maybe being a little bit more developed for Vanguard. That's kind of true, but they are also missing 3 top bar abilities. Vanguard,
yeah, right. What else am I gonna get, right? You know what I mean? It's like you're sitting outside the candy shop and it's closed, but you've got 3 whole top bar abilities. Like, okay, maybe I don't get a dragon, but can I get like a Megazord? Can I get a maybe we just get like a giant robot scout dog? I don't know, but it's in some ways not having it is almost better than having it already. The uncertainty makes me salivate with anticipation.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, right? So some of the top bar abilities that you have for Infernals kind of come from Malak. No, he doesn't have a CH. Anyway, however you say it, one of the co-op commanders, right? That's where you get the shroud cover and some other things. So going off that, you have Blockade as one of the Vanguard commanders. He can go and drop these airlifted buffed up med techs that last a limited amount of time. He can go and drop turrets on top of things. So clearly, that's what's gonna happen. Is Kiwian. Dude, I'm getting deja vu all over again, right? This feels like
Did we watch this game already? Yeah, it's not the exact same positioning. He's a little further in on the dive, but I really love like, the early kinetic redirect. If your opponent has enough units to contest you or shove you off, that's one thing. But if they don't, I feel like you just win. Like if he doesn't have the exact number of units that he doesn't lose his army immediately on that dive, he's just completely cooked, because it's like a reverse snowball. The more you attack the Lancers, the stronger that they become. They've got that the baseball bat guy from One Punch Man mechanic built in, and you'll love to see that. The only way for them to be effective is to get the crap kicked out of them.
Yeah, you know, Nate, it's funny because I think you've been sitting here all day, and really last Sunday as well as we cast together.
I wasn't even supposed to be here today.
I know, it's great, but you just sit here making anime references. You know, what is it? Vulcans they just got
I'm
the
having a good
Kamehama
day.
and.
No. Well, the Vulcan should probably just there's a big jacked dude that has a minigun in Metal Gear named Vulcan, and I'm just that's just a personal thing, really. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, you know, the point is that I think the devs sent you here to give us hints about the third faction, because there have been rumors, right, that the third faction is a bunch of anime cat girls. And here we have, you know, all the anime references that you could possibly want, like the anime of Kiwian losing his entire Luminite line to 8 Gaunt.
It's true. I'm a Frost Giant
right?
Deep State plant. It's true. All of it. You have no idea how many different cat characters you're going to be able to play as. Most of them are going to look like the ones from My Hero Academia if you guys need just some reference material. But talking about Season 3 camp opener, just to be clear. Yeah, otherwise, good Doombringer harass that we've been seeing so far. Nothing super out of the ordinary. Kiwian's done a great job of rebuilding his forces, getting everything back up together. Seems to prefer taking the healing shrine to get everything situated instead of going for something like earlier medtech. So it's just a lot on the combat units, a lot on the aggressive side of things. And when you're not willing to commit to anything defensively, this does become one. It's like, I'm not going to make turrets. I don't want to make defensive turrets because then I can't make more units that go out on the map. Well, there's a Doombringer in your base, and now your Bobs are turning into Fiends, and that's also not very great either. So a couple of Exos are in the main that just finished to help try and defend against this, but they can be overwhelmed by this force. You don't have the brute tankiness of the Lancer to help soak that up, so you need to make sure the bounce shots aren't hitting those Exos. One of them very low in the back, Beo.
Yeah, it's gonna get converted. I think it should just tick right down, but on the other side, there's a ton of Lancers, there's a ton of Exos, and why defend, Nate, when you can attack? Maybe that's the play, but these brutes, they do die. They don't die nearly as quickly as Kiwi. Kiwi's just playing not whack-a-mole, just don't get whacked by the mole. Like, he's playing all over the place.
In a way, they're both the mole and the mallet. It's truly the next generation. You'll love to see it. So the Lancers come in on the south side. Now, as he takes the damage, you see he's trying to stutter set them around on the south just to get on top of the Gaunts that keeps them away from the Exos, and the Exos just rip and tear into those brutes and fiends. No problem at all. Shroudstone summon in the natural, however, will help. And with that Infest Cloud getting dropped onto the Exos, he was in a position that he didn't really want to give up. So he manages to get the Infest on basically everything. The last few Lancers are very low. Magmadon comes out, but one trample, not going to be enough to turn the tide of this fight as Kiwian continues to apply the pressure. He's going to need a little more oomph. He's going to need something decisive. Look at the veterancy on these Exos. I just like to point that out. Almost none of them without some level of veterancy from that first fight. The unit retention is just fantastic, and that's why the next fight that happens with these same Exos is going to look a little bit uglier than the first one.
That it will, and Kiwian's just done such a nice job of also putting aggression on. He forced the Doombringer back home, snipes it down as well, so there's just no pressure. He only has to focus on this thing right now, and I mean, you mentioned it. Those Exos are absolutely shredding. They're not dying. They're doing a ton of damage, and the Magmadon on the left side decides to pop its trample, and, well, now it just cannot get in, and they're kiteable anyways. When you have this Exo count, Magmadons, unless they hit a flank, are just not really all that useful. So now the fourth base is dead. We have it seems like a lot of the imps on the right side ran away, but the Magmadons, they trample again, and that means that's the go call for Kiwi. He says, You committed your spell. You committed your special thing. Now I'm just gonna kill you. How about that? And
yeah, he has no
they
fear
will
of the
die.
Shroud Stones. No fear of the Shroud Stones whatsoever from Kiwianin. And as you pointed out, Magmadon immediately popped the cooldown. Lancers diving deep. And that's the thing, too. If he pops the Magmadon, and the Lancers still have the speed boost, so their ability to disengage is still there. They're not really close enough to the Exos to threaten them. So the Magmadons have just never been able to get into a position where they can actually do the thing that they need to and cause that disruption for some kind of snowball with the Fiends. A majority of the Exos again on that tier 2 or 3 veterancy, and that is game as Kiwian strikes back again.
You know, Nate, we call them Magmadons, but in that game, they were just Magmadon. That's how that works out. Ooh.
I like
Been
that.
sitting on that for like at least 3 minutes. So
Magma don'ts. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like where your head's at. Beo. It's so tough when the Lancers are already that far ahead. It's not like you can really split the ball up. He's already kind of set up everywhere. So the moment you see the Magmadon with the Lancers, you just pull back and let the Exos do their thing. But for NightPhoenix, just tough. We saw that push twice work on that map, right? That was basically the really fast kinetic redirect on the Lancers and him just bringing crazy pressure with that and then kind of snowballing it off of a third kill or a lot of imps getting killed. So we'll decide this one on Secluded Grove.
I was convinced we were going to see Jack and Ma Part 3, but apparently not. Apparently, NightPhoenix is like,
you would do that to us.
NightPhoenix, he gets turret rush twice. He's like, look, I don't even care that I won twice. I don't want to deal with this. Like, this is just pain. Let me do something that is maybe just a little bit more normal.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm impressed that you would be willing to put that evil on us for another turret rush game to finish this one off. That would truly be the most despicable thing that I think we could have happen. Because it's not like this is necessarily, it hasn't been like too bad of a series, but it's just heavily fluctuated between somewhat standard macro timing attacks and I'm turret rushing you and also going for the seed. It hasn't been in between. It's not like, oh, there's 0 to 100. No, it's only 0 or 100. There's been very little range outside of the extreme ends in this match.
Look, Nate, so you would agree that a macro game involves building a lot of structures, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's fair.
Kiwian built a lot of structures in games 1 and 3.
Well, you know where those buildings are has a bit of I'd love to have a garage, but if it's 3 miles away from my house, I don't know if I can say I'm macroing that well.
That's just Kiwian. Wherever Kiwian builds his structures, that's his base.
I'm not here to criticize Kiwian. I think he's amazing. I think he's absolutely incredible. My mind is just blown that we are still able to see such an extreme variance at all. It's been a very fun match, and on game number 5, I'm just glad that it's not a turret rush, only because I feel like that's kind of what game 5 asks for. Just that big head-to-head, the big head-to-head setup. I'm looking forward to it. Beo.
I am as well. It's going to be fun. Kiwian, of course, goes for the greed again. He's going to this very quick command center, doesn't get the barracks until afterwards. But the cool thing about this is not the build we saw from Luciferon as much, where Luciferon was going to Hornets, I think, in those greedy builds. He was doing other things. This is quick command post into double racks, getting all those Lancers early on, getting the biokinetics lab early, and hitting with like 8 to 10 Lancers with kinetic redirection to try to put pressure on the third base, or maybe the fourth base of NightPhoenix, depending on how, maybe the natural, depending on how NightPhoenix chooses to expand and chooses to play. So this is a style that gives you a lot more on the ground. Certainly you have less to deal with the Doombringer drop that we have been seeing NightPhoenix use to tremendous effect. But the other problem with those Doombringer drops is, right, that's 8 gaunts or 6 gaunts in a brute that you don't have defensively. So it gets a little bit awkward. But Nate, I love this clear path coming out of NightPhoenix. It gives you 2 speed camps, 2 resource camps, and an aggressive option to try to put pressure on Kiwian's natural.
So my only question then, you've brought up this path a couple of different times when we were casting last week too. But is on this map. So to bring some more references in play here, would you say the outside corner is kind of like going down the banana hallway? Is that what you're saying? Like the banana harass path on this map is what you're kind of suggesting with that attack route?
Is that a CS reference, Nate, or am I totally missing it?
I was actually going into really old StarCraft map references. I'm sorry. That's a Zelnaga Caverns reference. It's my bad. I should have clarified. Yeah.
Nate, I'm a young boy. I don't know what
That's
that
fair.
voice is, but I am.
Don't. I was gonna say don't go there, but I think I'm turning 31 in a week, so it's okay. I still remember all the ancient StarCraft 2 games. I've got your back.
I am. I got into things in 2013, so I am just a little. That's a little bit before my time. I do apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. Zelnaga Caverns was it was a great map and also a horrible map. That's the beauty of it is, in history, nostalgia makes everything a little sweeter. But we don't have to play those maps anymore, which is a great part too. One day we may feel the same way about these ones, which is another reason to just kind of sit back and enjoy it. Goodness knows what maps will look like in a year or two. It feels like once you put the ability to make the maps in the hands of players, it never looks like anything the developers come up with.
Oh, yeah, it's funny. Like the devs have, so the thing is when we talk about these maps, there isn't a map maker at Frost Giant. The devs have been working and putting these maps together to explore different concepts. Like, what if there's a rich base that everyone has to fight over in the middle of the map? Or what if there's a siege camp? Or what if I want to make it so you cannot expand whatsoever? That interesting different ideas. Some maybe more successful than others, but that's like, however many devs Frost Giant has. It's not a community of thousands working together. As now we see, of course, this massive Lancer timing on the third base. This is actually even faster than it hit last game. There are a lot of fiends, absolutely, but as they move faster and faster, there's absolutely no damage being done. The Lancers are getting tickled by this, and they're going to try to dive on top of things. Notice the Gaunts are going to try to run away. They're going to try to split away so they don't eat Splash, and Kiwianin, he gets damage done. He's going to have to kite back up, and look at what he's got right there. There's a sauna. It's a health clinic. He is going to be back up very fast.
And that's the other thing that I really like too, because it's not just about taking the camps to get the EXP for your Vanguard units or to get the Fiend Snowball, but here situationally we see that a medtech less army, he's kind of thought about this a little bit, so has that prepared for as soon as the first wave of the fight is over, so he's able to get a complete sustain round without needing to actually give anything up. And we'll look at that kinetic redirect, and he just continues to charge through on top of the rest of these Gaunts, the majority of them getting slaughtered. A couple of the Lancers getting very low. It's worth keeping in mind he is in deep, so we'll need to consider at least a little bit his escape path. And there he goes through the trees, one little fiend chasing behind.
Yeah, he's in deep, but he just run away.
He's
so
also
fast.
running. He's also moving at like 300 miles an hour, so he's fine. 300 kilometers an hour, whatever makes you guys happy. I love you.
You talk about speed though. Yes, Lancers with fully procced, Exos fully procced are speedy. It gets really fun when you get to the late game and you get all two medtech upgrades. They get Nanoswarm, which doesn't really matter here, but they get System Shock on top of it. And then what that means is suddenly you see Exos moving at 75% the speed of light. They just go so freaking fast.
They're crazy. System Shock is so good too. The debuff clearing for the Infest is also huge. I know that was one of the clarifications in the patch notes. Whether it was impactful or not before, I think they made sure that for this update that can clear the Infest off of your units with the medtech. So worth keeping in mind if you've got a few and you're getting infested a bunch.
And that is very true. But now again, we're kind of in this problem where because the Gaunt count was so heavily reset by Kiwianin early on, there's a single Magmadon here because again, a lot of Therium has to get spent on these Gaunts to replenish their number. And as we saw in that last game, they run forward, they try to disrupt things. You just kite away because you're a speedy boy. And now, as the Lancers get fast again, they're going to dive on top of everything. The Gaunts could try to run away, but they're now running into the splash issue. They're going to try to build this safety position, but instead they're all going to get shut down. We see a Shroud Stone get dropped down right here, and everything's dead. And Kiwianin, at this point, there is just about nothing to keep him to keep him off this third base. There's just about nothing to keep him away from the semifinals. So finally, Nate, it took us 5 games.
Wow.
Taking those 3 series. Vanguard can win a series. I was told it was impossible.
There you go. There you go. Twitch chat gets the ultimate validation, and we get to see a series where it feels like Kiwianin took 2 games where he's like, all right, I'm gonna throw this ball over the mountain, and then the other 3 games where it wasn't any game that wasn't Jagged Maw, he's like, okay, I'm gonna take this really seriously. This is super important. Nothing dumb, nothing silly, nothing crazy. Jagged Maw, turret rush, whatever. We'll go next, and does a great job handling it and turning around a series that seemed honestly kind of bleak to start.
Yeah, but Nate, we had Kiwianin the Clown showing off some funky games in that series, but now I hear that we have our Clown in Chief ready to join us to talk about things. So Killer Pigeon, what do you think about that series?
You know what? I think it's appropriate that some people keep calling you Frodo because that felt like quite the bloody journey we went through. For a second there, I thought we were stuck in a time loop. To put it in Nate's terms, we were watching ReZero. To put it the Zoomers, we were watching Groundhog Day. I kept updating the stats behind this, boys. This was kind of crazy, but one thing that seemed consistent throughout this, Nate, it seemed like whoever jumped first jumped last, right? Whoever made the first move, at least for those first 3 games, basically lost.
What does it mean? What does it mean, right? It's so strange because what does jumping out really mean in the context of the games that we saw as well? Like first move out, first moving your workers out of your base to build a turret. It's a very strange dynamic, but I do think that the only thing I guess that we were keeping track of that's still in my head anymore is that Jagged Maw is starting to go a little bit back more in favor of the Infernal, which means we need an upset in our next series.
I mean, all I feel, BeoMulf, is appropriate you had the red nose on for a sec, because I actually think that, to a certain extent, Kiwian was just the Joker from Batman there. Every time Jagamore comes up, do it. Do it. I want you to do it. But finally, Secluded Grove actually made an appearance. How do we feel about Kiwian's matchup next? If I'm not mistaken, I'm checking the brackets now. He is going to face off against either Parting or Probe next. Feels like Kiwian likes to be very aggressive. How do you like his odds against the 2 players, either Parting or Probe?
Well, this is a rehash against several beta tournaments, pre-beta tournaments. Parting, Kiwian have run into each other quite a bit, if that's what we get here. And I think it's going to be interesting. So Parting is a very, very aggressive Inferno player. He can play the late game, I'm sure, but most games he's playing, and we saw him do this to Krolu in the round of 16, all about hitting some sick timing, killing off his opponent, probably with some imps, and so this crazy 7-minute timing. Probe, I don't know as much about in terms of how he's going to want to play. Certainly, I'm a little bit inside of me hopes that Probe wins because that means we get a guaranteed Infernal versus Vanguard best of 9, which seems super cool. But I think at the end of the day, we're deep enough in the tournament, Killer Pigeon, that this is kind of a toss-up. Parting can win this, Probe can win this, Kiwian can beat either of them or lose to either of them. This is probably, though, the scariest portion of the bracket. Parting, Probe, and Kiwian have been some of the best, if not the best, players of pretty much every playtest thus far.